History is full of red flags. Big, waving, neon red flags that scream, don't do this, or run away, or maybe don't build a city right there. But humans have a superpower. It is a terrifying superpower called ignorance. We have an incredible ability to look at imminent doom, stare it right in the face, and say, it'll probably be fine. Usually, when you ignore a warning, you might get a parking ticket or burn your toast. But sometimes, the cost is much, much higher. We are talking about entire cities wiped off the map, empires erased overnight, and tragedies so avoidable they will make you want to scream at your screen. Today, we are looking at the catastrophic consequences of not listening. Let's start with some mild bureaucratic incompetence and slowly work our way towards the stuff of nightmares. Number 8. The key to the cabinet. The Titanic Binoculars. We all know the story. Ideally, ships shouldn't hit icebergs, but usually, when we talk about the Titanic, we talk about speed, or hubris, or the lack of lifeboats. But the reason the ship actually hit the ice might come down to one specific guy and one specific pocket. It's April 1912. A second officer named David Blair is originally assigned to the Titanic for its maiden voyage. He is excited. It's a big promotion. But at the very last minute, literally just before the ship leaves, Southampton, the White Star Line reshuffles the crew. Blair is transferred off the ship. Disappointed and in a rush, Blair packs his bags and leaves. But in his haste, he forgets one small thing. He forgets to hand over a key. This wasn't the key to the engine room or the safe. It was the key to a small storage locker in the crow's nest. The locker that held the ship's binoculars. So, the Titanic sails. And up in the crow's nest, lookouts Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee realize they have a problem. They ask for the glasses. The officers check the locker. It's locked. They check their pockets. No key. So, for the entire voyage across the freezing North Atlantic, the lookouts are forced to rely on their naked eyes. Fast forward to the night of April 14th. It is pitch black. The water is calm, meaning there are no waves breaking against the icebergs to make them visible. Fleet and Lee are squinting into the dark, freezing wind tearing at their faces. By the time they spot the gray mass looming ahead, it is less than 500 yards away. They ring the bell 3 times. They pick up the phone, but physics doesn't care about panic. It was too late. Later, at the official inquiry, Frederick Fleet was asked a simple question. If you had binoculars, could you have seen it sooner? His answer was blunt. We could have seen it a bit sooner. How much sooner? Enough to get out of the way. We built the unsinkable ship, fitted it with the finest luxury known to man, but we forgot to give the guys up top a pair of glasses because of a chaotic shift change. In hindsight, checking your pockets before you clock out is a pretty good rule of thumb. Number 7. The glowing grin. The Radium Girls. This next one isn't an accident. It's a marketing campaign for poison. Let's go to New Jersey in 1917. The world is at war, and soldiers need watches they can read in the dark. The solution? Radium, a magical new element that glows green. The United States Radium Corporation hires hundreds of young women to paint watch dials. It pays well, it's patriotic work. And the best part? You get to work with this amazing sunshine paint. The supervisors tell the girls the paint is harmless. It's good for you, they say. It puts a rosy color in your cheeks. But painting watch dials requires precision. The brushes lose their shape. So the girls are taught a specific technique. Lip, dip, paint. You put the brush in your mouth to sharpen the point. You dip it in the radium. You paint the number. Lip, dip, paint. Some of the girls do this hundreds of times a day. They ingest a little bit of radioactive dust every single time. But they aren't worried. In fact, they love it. They paint their fingernails with it. They paint their teeth with it to surprise their boyfriends in the dark. They're literally lighting up the room with their smiles. But radium has a nasty chemical trick. The human body thinks radium is calcium. So when you swallow it, your body doesn't flush it out. It deposits it straight into your bones. A few years later, the girls start visiting dentists. They have toothaches. But when the dentist pulls a tooth, a piece of the jawbone comes out with it. Their mouths fill with ulcers that never heal. Their hips fracture just from walking. They were rotting alive from the inside out. And here is the twist that makes this truly evil. The scientists and the managers at the company, they knew. They wore lead aprons in the labs. They used tongs to handle the radium. but they let the teenage girls put it in their mouths because it was faster and cheaper. When the girls tried to sue, the company dragged it out for years, hoping they would die before the trial ended, and many of them did. It took decades for the laws to change, but the legacy of the Radium Girls lives on. If you were to dig up their graves today and hold a Geiger counter over them, the needle would still jump. Number 6. The worst diplomatic mistake in history. The Khwarezmian Empire. If you have ever sent a rude email to your boss and regretted it, just remember, it could be worse. You could be Sultan Muhammad II. In the early 13th century, Sultan Muhammad ruled the Khwarezmian Empire. This was a massive, powerful superpower, covering modern-day Iran, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan. He had huge armies. He had wealth. He called himself the shadow of God on earth. And then, he got a message from a neighbor, a guy named Genghis Khan. At this point, Genghis Khan was actually trying to chill out. He had conquered China and wanted to establish a trade route. He sends a caravan of 450 merchants to the Sultan's lands with the message, "I want trade, not war." The Sultan's governor in the border city looks at the caravan, sees all the gold and silk, and thinks free stuff. He accuses them of being spies, arrests them, and executes them. Then, he steals the goods. Genghis Khan is furious, but, and this is rare for him, he gives them a second chance. He sends 3 diplomats to the Sultan to demand justice. He wants the governor punished. The Sultan, sitting on his high horse, looks at these diplomats. He shaves the beards of 2 of them, a massive insult, and beheads the 3rd one. He sends the head back to Genghis Khan. He basically looked at the most dangerous military commander in human history and said, "What are you going to do about it?" Here is what he did about it. Genghis Khan didn't just invade. He brought the apocalypse. He brought 200,000 Mongols and erased the Khwarezmian Empire from existence. They didn't just kill the soldiers. They killed the civilians. They killed the dogs and cats. In some cities, they diverted rivers to flow over the ruins just to physically wash the city off the map so that no trace would remain. The Sultan ran away and died alone on a small island in the Caspian Sea, wearing rags. His empire? Gone. His people? Slaughtered. The irony is that Genghis Khan really just wanted to buy some textiles, but the Sultan chose arrogance. Number 5. The mountain that walked, the Vajont Dam disaster. Now let's move to 1963 to the Italian Alps. This is a story of man versus nature, and spoiler alert, nature always wins. Italy wanted to build the tallest dam in the world, a masterpiece of engineering. They picked a narrow valley below a mountain called Monte Toc. Now, the locals had a different name for that mountain. They called it the Walking Mountain. You can probably see where this is going. As they built the dam and filled the reservoir, the water began to soak into the base of the mountain. The ground started to shift. A journalist named Tina Merlin started writing articles. She screamed from the rooftops, "The mountain is unstable. If you fill the dam, the mountain will fall into it." The response from the government and the energy company? They sued her. They called her an alarmist. They said their engineers had done the math. "We can control it," they said. "If the mountain slides, it will be slow. We'll just lower the water level." On October 9th, 1963, at 10:39 p.m., the mountain stopped walking and started running. A massive chunk of Monte Toc, 260 million cubic meters of earth collapsed. It happened in 45 seconds. It hit the reservoir at 110 kilometers per hour. It didn't just splash. It created a mega tsunami. A wave of water 250 meters high rose up. But before the water hit the town of Longarone below, the air hit it. The displacement of air created a shockwave so powerful it was like an atomic bomb blast. It stripped the clothes off people's bodies. It leveled stone buildings instantly. Then came the water. In a matter of minutes, Longarone and several other villages were gone, wiped clean to the bedrock. Nearly 2,000 people died. The dam itself, it held. It's still standing there today. A massive concrete tombstone blocking a valley of nothingness. They ignored the locals. They ignored the journalist. They ignored the cracks in the ground. They thought they could negotiate with gravity. But gravity drives a hard bargain. Number 4. The city locked from the inside. The eruption of Mount Pelée. Usually, when a volcano starts smoking, people run away. But in 1902, in the city of Street Pierre, on the island of Martinique, they were forced to stay. It's early May. Mount Pelée, which looms over the city, starts waking up. Ash falls like gray snow. The smell of sulfur fills the streets. Then comes the first horror movie element. The animals know something is wrong. A plague of pit vipers, thousands of venomous snakes flees the mountain. They invade the city. Giant snakes slithering through the streets, into houses, biting people, killing chickens. 50 people die just from snake bites. If 1,000 poisonous snakes invade your house, that is the universe telling you to leave. But there is a problem. An election is coming up. The governor, a man named Louis Moutet, is worried that if the people evacuate, he will lose the votes of the city. He needs them to stay until election day on May 10th. So he initiates a lockdown. Not to keep danger out, but to keep people in. He stations troops on the roads to turn refugees back. He orders the newspapers to print articles saying there is absolutely no danger. He even brings his own wife to the city to prove it's safe. On the morning of May 8th, 2 days before the election, the mountain explodes. But it's not lava. It's a pyroclastic flow. A superheated cloud of gas and rock moving at 400 miles per hour. It hits Street Pierre in less than 2 minutes. The temperature is 1,000 degrees Celsius. The city is vaporized. 30,000 people died instantly. The governor died. His wife died. The voters died. But here's the incredible twist. There was one survivor in the city center, a man named Ludger Silbaris. Why did he survive? Because he was a criminal. He had gotten into a bar fight and was thrown into solitary confinement. He was in a small, windowless dungeon with thick stone walls, half underground. The firestorm rolled over his cell, baking him like a potato, but the walls held. He was found days later, badly burned, but alive. The safest place in the city turned out to be the dungeon. In a city where freedom meant death, being a prisoner saved his life. Number 3. The Silent Fog, the Bhopal gas tragedy. This is widely considered the worst industrial disaster in history, and it happened because a safety siren was considered too annoying. December 1984, Bhopal, India. The Union Carbide pesticide plant. To save money, the company had cut corners everywhere. The safety systems were either broken or turned off. The refrigeration unit for the dangerous chemicals turned off to save $70 a day. The flare tower to burn off gas corroded. But the worst part was the alarm. The plant had a siren to warn the community of leaks, but the workers were told to turn it off or keep it low because it annoyed the neighbors and caused panic over small leaks. On the night of December 2nd, a worker notices the pressure gauge on a tank of methyl isocyanate (MIC) is rising. Water has leaked into the tank. A reaction is starting. The tank heats up. The concrete cracks. And then, the safety valve pops. 40 tons of deadly gas vent into the night air. Now, MIC is heavier than air. It doesn't float up, it sinks. It crawls along the ground like a fog. It creeps out of the factory and into the sleeping slums surrounding it. People wake up coughing. Their eyes are burning. It feels like chili powder is being rubbed into their lungs. But there is no alarm. No one knows what is happening. They think it's a fire. When the alarm finally sounds, hours later, it's too late. Panic sets in. People run into the streets. But because they don't know what the gas is, many run with the wind, staying in the cloud longer. Doctors rush to the hospitals, but the company never told them the antidote. They didn't know how to treat it. Thousands died that night. Bodies were stacked in the streets. Estimates say up to 15,000 died eventually, and 500,000 were injured. All because maintaining safety equipment was too expensive. As it turns out, cutting the budget on the brakes of your car works great. Right until you hit a corner. Number 2. The iron dam that melted. The Banqiao Dam failure. We are back to dams, but on a scale that makes the Italian disaster look like a puddle. Henan Province, China. The Banqiao Dam. The government called it the Iron Dam. They claimed it was indestructible. They said it was designed to withstand a 1 in 1,000 year flood. But there was one hydrologist, a man named Chen Xing, who said no, it's not. He warned that the design was flawed. He warned that blocking too many river outlets was dangerous. Did they listen? Of course not. They fired him. They removed him from the project for being too critical. Then came Typhoon Nina. The typhoon parked itself over the region and didn't move. In 24 hours, it rained more than it usually rains in an entire year. The reservoir filled up. The workers tried to open the sluice gates to release the water, but they hadn't been maintained. They were rusted shut. The communication lines were cut by the storm. The dam workers were firing flares into the sky, trying to signal the devastation, but no one could see them in the rain. At 1 a.m., the iron dam melted. It collapsed. A wall of water 10 kilometers wide and roughly 20 feet high roared downstream at 30 miles per hour. But it didn't stop there. As this massive wave moved down the river, it hit the next dam. Bam! That one broke. Then the next one. It was a domino effect. 62 dams collapsed in a chain reaction. Entire towns were asleep when the water hit. The death toll is estimated anywhere from 85,000 to 240,000 people. They fired the guy who did the math. The water did the math for them. And the water always wins. Number 1. The Foretold Funeral. The Tragedy of Armero. We have reached number 1. And this one takes the top spot not because it has the highest death toll, but because it is the most frustratingly avoidable tragedy in human history. November 1985. Colombia. The town of Armero sits in a valley about 30 miles from the Nevado del Ruiz volcano. The volcano had been rumbling for months. Geologists and volcanologists from all over the world came to study it. They looked at the glacier on top of the volcano and said, okay, here is exactly what is going to happen. If it erupts, the lava will melt the ice. The water will mix with ash to create a lahar, a landslide of concrete like mud. It will flow down this river valley, and it will bury Armero. They were so sure that they published a hazard map. It showed Armero completely covered in red. They published this map 1 month before the disaster. Local officials called the map alarmist. They said, don't scare the people. It will hurt the economy. On the night of November 13th, the volcano erupts. Ash starts falling on Armero. People run out of their houses. But the local priest and the police get on the loudspeakers. They tell everyone, stay calm, stay inside, put a handkerchief over your nose. There is no danger. It's just a little ash. Meanwhile, up on the mountain, the glacier is melting. A wall of mud, 100 feet high, is barreling down the valley faster than a car on a highway. At 11:30 p.m., the power goes out. The radio, which had been playing cheerful music to keep people calm, goes silent. Then, a sound like 1,000 freight trains fills the valley. The mud hits. It buries the town in minutes. 23,000 people died. The most heartbreaking symbol of this tragedy was a 13-year-old girl named Omaira Sanchez. She was trapped in the debris, pinned by the legs in water up to her neck. She survived the initial impact. For 3 days, rescue workers and cameras surrounded her. They couldn't free her without a heavy pump, which they didn't have. The world watched on live TV as she stayed calm, sang songs, and eventually said goodbye to her mother before passing away from exposure. She died surrounded by people who wanted to help but couldn't, in a town that was told to stay inside and wait for death. They had a map, they had a month, they had warnings, and they chose to listen to the radio instead. Outro. From sinking ships to melting faces, the pattern is always the same. Someone does the math. Someone points at the danger and screams. And someone else, usually wearing a very expensive suit, says, we can't afford to fix that right now. We like to think of fear as a weakness, but fear is actually useful. Fear keeps you alive. The real danger isn't the volcano, or the iceberg, or the gas leak. The real danger is the arrogance of thinking we are too smart to fail. So, the next time you see a warning sign, or you get a bad feeling in your gut, or a mountain starts walking towards you, don't wait for a permission slip from the government. Just run. I have to ask, which one of these I told you so moments made you the angriest? Was it the missing keys on the Titanic or the snakes in Martinique? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more cheerful stories about humanity's impending doom. I'll see you in the next one.